following podcast is for informational purposes only. The contents of this podcast do not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Take responsibility for your own decisions, consult with the proper professionals, and do your own research.
So basically, it's like in the ocean of data, you can directly look for this specific data which you want using subgraphs. So that gives us a wide freedom to develop many tools using subgraphs. And coming up, like in future, if you will see Substream and Firehose, it will be more faster also. So that will be very interesting to see how complete subgraph and the graph community grows in the future.
We are like astronauts floating in the space of time, lost between past and future.
Welcome to the GRTiQ podcast. Today I'm speaking with two members of the DappLooker team, Vikash and Abhay. You may have already heard about DappLooker. They continue to receive a lot of attention for their contributions both within the graph ecosystem and the broader Web3 community. DappLooker started as an analytics solution that enables users to explore blockchain data and create charts and visualizations, all without needing to be technically oriented or know how to code. It's likely that you've seen some of the charts and visualizations about the graph from the DappLooker Twitter account. And in addition to launching an analytics solution, DappLooker recently took an additional step and launched their own indexer on the graph. During this interview, Vikash and Abhay talk about the origins of DappLooker, how it works and how to use it, and then we talk about when they became interested in the graph and why they decided to join the community and launch an indexer. And similar to other interviews we've had on the podcast, the DappLooker story begins with simply using the graph to get building in Web3 and then developing the conviction to go deeper and join the community to become a contributor. To start the discussion, I asked Vikash and Abhay to introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Abhinav, co-founder of DappLooker, and I normally lead the front-end part and the biz dev of DappLooker.
So hi, this is Vikash Choubey, working with DappLooker at CTO, and I mostly lead the technical and backend part. Thanks for having us.
Abhinav, I just want to start with a question about the team at DappLooker. What can you share with listeners about the team working on DappLooker?
So basically, we are a 10-people team with different skill sets like data analysts, blockchain experts, biz dev professionals. So me and Abhay, the co-founder, and Vikas, combined have experience of 25 years. And we are a team which is distributed around India. And we are also a remote first company, which allows us to work anywhere from India.
Well, Vikash and Abhinav, I want to thank you for joining me and super excited to learn more about DappLooker and all the things that this team is working on. Before I ask you some of those questions, I think it'd be interesting to know about the Web3 crypto scene in India. There's a lot of activity over there. What can you share with listeners about the community in India?
So what we are seeing right now in Web3 is like the shape of iceberg. There's lots of things to go, and there's lots of opportunity in different domains. You can see every day, and something new is launching, something new enhanced version is coming out every day. So it's one of the growing tech. Blockchain is and Web3 is one of the growing tech right now, and it's also solving the centralized control issues we have in the current world, you can say. So Web3 now allow user to connect and communicate with the need of centralized authority. Yeah, so that will in a combined, you can say, will help the Indian community to grow in the blockchain.
Abhinav, I want to follow up on something you said there, and I want to talk about the ways in which greater adoption of crypto would benefit the people in India. Do you have a sense for how that would help people in India?
There are some points. We are the youngest workforce in the world right now. This means in the near future, we are going to be involved and contributed at the highest level in Web3. And we are going to be the biggest market for crypto, be it DeFi, NFT, supply chain management, or in any domain, you can say. So yes, Web3 is going to help Indian community. And for sure, it's going to be very helpful because it's in booming tech and young people from India want to join the Web3 community and contribute as much as possible.
Well, that's a very great overview of DappLooker. And again, every time I get the opportunity to interview somebody from India, I get a lot of excitement and energy about the future and what's going to happen there. I want to turn now to this question about how the team at DappLooker came to know about the graph. Vikash, what can you tell us about that?
So basically, we are a Web3 data-driven analytics platform. So it's kind of like collecting the data correctly. We were already kind of working on Web3 development, deploying content. So we came to know about the subgraph to get the data of that particular content. That's how we introduced to the subgraph. Later we found out about the graph and we more dig deep into what exactly the graph is, how exactly the subgraph works. And later we found out the use case which we are currently using now, and we build our complete data analytics and visualization platform on concept of subgraph. Although we have extended to a direct connecting our contract and subqueries, but yeah, means you can say 50 to 70% of our product is based on subgraph. So this is the background story. We started with Web3 development, then to subgraph and to graph, then to now indexer also.
Well, I love hearing that. It comes up on the podcast all the time. People first fall in love with the utility of subgraphs, and then they fall down the rabbit hole, so to speak, of learning more about the graph and the ecosystem. If you don't mind, Vikash, can you just describe what it was about subgraphs that pulled you in? Why are they so useful for what you were trying to do?
Yeah, sure. So basically, if you will see, subgraph is not just collecting the data. It's you can say a search engine for Web3 community, right? So basically, we are getting all the data, and a subgraph is providing us the open API to query those data. So basically, it's in the ocean of data, you can directly look for this specific data which you want using subgraph. So that gives us a quite freedom to develop many tools using subgraphs. And coming up in future, if you will see Substream and Firehose, it will be more faster also. So that will be very interesting to see how complete subgraph and the graph community grows in the future.
So then what pulls you into the graph ecosystem? It's one thing to use subgraphs and find the utility in them. It's something entirely different to get involved in the ecosystem and launch an indexer, for example. So what pulled you in?
So basically, if you will see once, not just for the graph actually, the whole decentralized system, once you start using something, you have to get involved in community to get more knowledge about those things, what's happening behind the scene, so that you can develop more utilities over that, right? So basically, that's the reason when we started using subgraph, when the DappLooker was born, after that we realized we have to get into the community to understand it more, to give a good service to our users, right? So that's how we realized getting into the community is the best way to utilize the complete product and then building over that.
So Vikash and Abhinav, we're talking today because DappLooker has really made an impression on the graph community in two ways. The first way is with these incredible analytics that you're providing within the community, and a lot of people are accessing those and following those on Twitter. And then in the other way, you've got this indexer that's also making a splash and people are interested in what you're doing there. Abhinav, which one came first? DappLooker, the blockchain's analytics, or the indexer?
So obviously DappLooker came first, and after that DappLooker indexer came into the picture. When we started DappLooker, we started with smart contracts, we're getting data from the smart contract. But once we know about subgraph, we started developing subgraphs, and then to understand more about it, we get into the community, and then we get to know about indexes. And then we thought of why not? Let's have a DappLooker indexer, which will help us to be in the community more and also to know more about subgraphs.
Abhinav, in preparation for the interview, I went online, looked up DappLooker, and did some research on the team. And you're working on a lot of different things. Can you share with listeners the different projects or products that you're working on as a team?
Right. So right now, we are working to improve DappLooker as a product. So if I give you the context, so today we launched the billing module. So we just automate the billing system completely. So anyone who being a developer or a data scientist or enterprise can get into the getting DappLooker with these. That's one thing. Then we also working on some of the way by which we can make data easily available to the community, being data scientist, developers, or like anyone being a non-tech people, because we are no code. So we have also launched a Discover page where like user can see some of the popular graphs, charts, dashboards on our platform. So they, by just viewing that data, they can understand what's going on into the Web3. From that, like we also work with as Graph recently launched the billing on Polygon and then Arbitrum. So we also our data centers created on some dashboards about billing where like they can easily see the important metrics on graph billing. So these are some of the things which we are building on and we are continue to build on, which make DappLooker product more good for the people and also for the community to make the data more accessible to the community.
The GRTiQ podcast is made possible by a generous grant from the Graph Foundation. The Graph Grants program provides support for protocol infrastructure, tooling, dApps, subgraphs, and community building efforts. Learn more at thegraph.foundation. That's thegraph.foundation.
Hi, this is GRTiQ, and thank you for listening. Listeners who enjoy this content can help support the GRTiQ podcast by leaving a review or a 5-star rating wherever they download podcasts, by sharing episodes on social media, or by simply telling a friend or colleague about something they heard or learned from one of our guests. It's support from listeners like you that make it possible for us to keep shining a light on the people and stories behind Web3 and the graph.
Roger that.
Abhinav, I want to make it really easy for listeners that want to understand the two different things that DappLooker is contributing. One, obviously the data analytics, and two, the indexer. So let's spend time on each for a minute here. Let's talk about DappLooker to start with. What is DappLooker and how does it work?
Yeah, DappLooker is a no-code, multi-chain, blockchain analytics and visualization platform where user don't need to be techie to do any kind of analytics. For example, someone any biz dev professional, not much techie. So if they wanted to see certain data on a specific protocol, they must have to know SQL queries. But on our platform, you don't need to. You just know what data you want, and with 2-3 clicks, you can easily create awesome chart and dashboard on platform, and you can also easily share with the community. So this will be very helpful for the people who are non-techie, especially if you say CEOs, CFOs, marketing people, they find it very useful. And if you are an advanced, if technical, in SQL queries, or you can write SQL queries, you can also do advanced analytics on a platform. So we also make the complete Web3 data into simple to understand tabular format. As you know, the smart contract raw data is very difficult to understand. So we make it easy. And after we connect it with subgraphs, you can do subgraph analytics on a platform. You can build some charts and dashboard using subgraph as source. And you can do analytics on platform. Apart from that, we also support external API endpoint. Then you can upload any JSON CSV file. You can also connect with your query endpoint. So these are the source by which you can connect your DApp or networks on a platform, and you can do analytics on platform. So basically, the main motto is we want to make data accessible to everyone, be it technical, be it non-technical.
When you launched DappLooker, especially for its use within the graph ecosystem, who did you envision using it? I mean, did you think this would become a tool mostly for delegators, maybe something more used by subgraph developers? Did you have any sense for who the end user would be?
DappLooker can be used by anyone, be it subgraph developers. We are also a subgraph developer. We also deploy a lot of subgraph on the graph. So we are also a subgraph developer. We know how it works. So it's for everyone, for subgraph developer, delegators, indexers, curators. Because everyone at some point, they need to understand the data. Because for indexer, if they want to allocate some subgraph, they need to understand the data. And for that, they need data that can be easily understand. So it's for everyone. We made it for everyone. It's not we specifically for subgraph developer or indexers. So it's for everyone.
Yeah, and to add on, it's as we said, it is for everyone, not just a subgraph developer or delegator indexer. So basically anyone developing anything on blockchain, any blockchain, it is for those people. So anyone deploying any contract, they can use our platform, directly connect their contract address to our platform and do analytics, get the analytics of their contract users. So it's for everyone who is developing or like non-techie person who is not developing, just playing around the company performance, you can say, or anything. So the platform is open for everyone.
Abhinav, if anyone wants to build or play around with the dashboard, they can just go to the website and just start building some of the analytics and play around and see what it's like. Is that correct?
Yeah, completely. So you just have to land on to DappLooker.com. After that, like you can go to Discover page and you can start analyzing the data. Or you want to build something, you can easily do that.
Some fun charts that I've seen posted on the Twitter account are things like hours of the day in which delegators are delegating to indexers. So you can see in a 24-hour period when the delegations are flowing in, or days of week. So you can get super creative using this dashboard. And like I said, it's a lot of fun to follow your team on Twitter and to see all the incredible analytics that are coming back. Abhinav, is it correct that DappLooker started as a grantee? You applied for a grant with the Graph Foundation?
Yeah, that's correct. But before we receive the grant, we are also a subgraph developer. We are working with the subgraph, understanding subgraph, how things work. And as you know, subgraph is one of the biggest Web3 data source right now. We are using subgraph on our platform to get the data. And then we thought of how can we help with the grant? And then we applied for the grant and we received the grant.
Abhinav, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear about the experience you had in applying for a grant, and also any advice you have for listeners that are contemplating applying for a grant for the project they're working on.
The grant process is very super smooth. There's a form which we have to fill, and so after that, within 2 to 3 weeks, we get some feedback. We get a one-to-one connect, and it's super easy. What I can say, it's super easy and transparent. That's the best part. And the second question you asked, about this, I can say, before applying for any grant on graphs, just think about the community, how your grant can help the Web3 community, and with the graph grant, how it will be enhanced to the next level. So if you have that clarity in your mind, then you can apply for a grant and you will receive that grant, because it's super smooth. The process is very super smooth. It's very transparent.
What have you learned about the graph as a result of creating something like DappLooker? Abhinav, obviously these dashboards are really interesting and they shed a lot of light on the things that are happening in the graph. But by virtue of creating that tool, have you learned anything about how important the graph is for Web3 and some of that?
Yes. So the graph is very important for the Web3 community, because as you know, it's the search engine for the Web3 data. So what make it more easy to get Web3 data using a GraphQL endpoint, which we call subgraph endpoint. And the graph is building that subgraph more and more useful for the community, and they're working with the graph client so that the community can easily access data using the subgraph endpoint. So there's lots of utility we have found using the graph. And as you know, we have one of the trusted data sources, subgraph. So we are using that. And apart from that, we have also built DappLooker, which is a real-time Web3 data visualizer. So that's also based on subgraph endpoint. So we have lots of idea, and I believe the community also have lots of idea about the utility using the graph, what the graph provides. So I can talk a lot about this. I find it very useful.
Before we turn our attention to DappLooker, the indexer, Abhinav, I want to ask you one last question, and it's about your long-term vision for DappLooker. What is the team's long-term vision for DappLooker and how it fits into Web3?
As I told you before also, we are looking to make data accessible to everyone, be it technical people, non-technical people. That's the main motto we have, and we are moving toward that. And the features we are adding, the new launches we are doing, it's aligned with those vision we have. And in future, we are onboarding more and more networks, more and more dApps, so that the Web3 community can have the data with them to do analytics, to understand data better. So that's the vision we have.
Hi, this is Vikash Choubey with DappLooker. If my conversation with GRTiQ podcast has been helpful to you, then please consider supporting future episodes by becoming a subscriber. Visit grtiq.com/podcast for more information. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
GRTiQ podcast.
Thanks for listening.
So Vikash, let's turn our attention now to the indexer. And the best question to start with would probably be, why did you decide as a team to launch an indexer?
Yes, so as we discussed about subgraphs and the story of complete how DappLooker was started. So basically working on subgraph and with the graph, actually we realize that it's a good time like to now do more for the community. And as the data is growing, of course, we need more indexer to index the data, right? So seeing all these things plus going into the community, we found it a great time to be an indexer and like index the subgraph. And as we are subgraph developer, maintaining an indexer will give us more knowledge about how things are happening. So that's how like we decided to launch our own indexer.
And what was that experience like for any listener that's contemplating launching their own indexer? Was it a difficult experience, or did you find a lot of resources available to help you get started?
So basically, I will not say it's difficult, but yeah, means anyone launching their indexer, they should have some technical knowledge, I will say. And about the resources are kind of for, particularly for indexer, like from the graph, like we have great resource available online. Documentations was good. Like we were using Pain's repo for that, and we have GraphOps Kubernetes setups also. So if someone want to start, like it's very smooth, I would say, just that they have to have the technical knowledge, and the community is like very good community. Like we can get help easily. So that's the like best part. It was a totally smooth process, like launching the indexer, and anyone who wants to start, for them also it will be kind of smooth only.
I want to ask a follow-up question about that, Vikash, because one thing that always surprises me when I talk with members of the indexer community is, number one, indexers are kind of competitors, right? They both want to secure delegations. They both want to serve queries. On the other hand, however, it seems to me, like you said there, the indexer community works together a lot. How would you describe that relationship between indexers and the fact that they're both competitors, but also part of the same community helping one another?
Well, then, this is kind of interesting question, and what you are saying is kind of like as if like we are contradicting means each point. So basically, if we will see, it's not about the competition; it's about some supporting the community. Of course, people can decide like how they want to proceed. Like not everyone is looking for delegation. People have a good amount of stake already they have done. They can just rely on the query itself, right? So it's about like how you want to support the community, of course. So best part of Web3 is everyone wins here. It's not like anyone losing. So basically, if someone is launching their indexer, whether it is a small or big indexer, they are getting paid for query fees. They are getting paid for indexing the subgraph. So basically, that's how they are getting benefits. It's about like how much you can stake. Depending upon that, each one is getting their reward. I will say. So it's like everyone is winning here. Someone wants to query that data. Of course, they can query, and it will be distributed among the community. So that is actually fair thing. Like whatever, how much you are able to stake, and according to that, you are getting the reward. So there is, I don't feel there is any competition with each other. It's like helping the community with whatever you have.
Obviously, DappLooker is working on analytics, and it's producing these cool charts and dashboards. And the question is, does the work that you're doing there inform or support the work you're doing as an indexer? Like, are you able to kind of benefit from that?
So it's not directly helping us, but you can say that suppose someone has created their subgraphs and they are using it on our platform, like to create dashboards. So sometimes what happened, like they found some issue in their subgraph because of some problem, like right. So because we are kind of subgraph developer and indexing the data, we kind of know, we kind of have good knowledge of subgraphs, right? It's not directly helping, but yeah, I can say like technically it is helping much to resolve those issues faster. So that's how like these two parts are linked actually. It's not direct relation, but yeah, indirectly it is helping us both ways.
Vikash, one question I like to ask indexers when they join the podcast is how they go about choosing which subgraphs they want to index. How have you and the team approached that?
So basically, currently we are targeting high returns for our delegators. So we actually look for subgraph which have good proportion currently. For that, actually, we have created a dashboard on our platform itself and like shared in the community also, which kind of we can enter the amount which we want to like allocate to particular subgraph. So it will give the list of subgraph with high proportion. So that's how like currently we are targeting. But going forward, as the delegation will increase and our stake will increase, we will move forward towards the serving the high signal subgraph to serve the most number of queries from our indexer.
Vikash, when you think about the role of indexer in the future of the graph, how important are indexers to the graph and what it can do for Web3?
As we know, like the graph is already doing a lot for Web3. So indexer is like, as the subgraphs will increase, ultimately we will need someone to index those things, right? As the complete ecosystem will grow, we need more indexers. So the indexer are kind of, you can say, a backbone for the subgraphs. So you can understand like it's very important for graph to have more and more indexer joining so that we can serve more and more queries going forward as the data will increase in Web3 and the incomplete the graph community. So indexer are kind of, you can say, a backbone for the graph to serve the queries. So the indexers are like kind of most important thing the graph have to serve the queries actually for the subgraph.
And Vikash, for any listeners that want to learn more about the indexer and find out how they can get involved with the team, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is like for DappLooker indexer, I would say directly anyone can connect with Discord server with DappLooker directly. As you know, like how startups work, we are available 24/7 almost. So from our side, the support is good. And apart from Discord, actually, we have a separate handle for our indexer and plus for DappLooker. So Twitter is also a good way to connect with us.
Well, I'll put notes to all of the links you mentioned there in the show notes. So for any listeners that want to learn more about DappLooker, the indexer, any of the things we've discussed, just visit the show notes and there will be some links there. Before I end today with Vikash and Abhinav, I want to ask you both just a couple final questions. The first one is about the future of Web3. And Vikash, I want to ask you, when you think about the future, what is your vision for Web3? Is it the next internet? Does it replace Web2? Or does Web2 and Web3 sort of coexist into the future? How do you think about that?
Well, I feel like Web2 and Web3 will coexist. Means like Web2 have their own benefits, and like with Web3, we are kind of decentralizing everything and giving more transparency to the user. So that's a very positive point for Web3, which is I feel that it's my personal opinion that is the most important thing Web3 is doing. So making everything transparent. So I think Web3, of course, Web3 is here to stay. But yeah, means with Web2 coexisting. So basically, if you will see, we are having DeFi, which is kind of removing any centralized authority controlling anyone's money. Plus, with Web3, we can have quite transparent supply chain management taking places. Currently, we are kind of in DappLooker, we are launching our complete pricing feature, which is kind of decentralized, and all the price payment will go through contract. So that will be a transparent thing for the user who is paying, right? So that gives a power to user to analyze everything, whatever they are doing. That's how like Web3 is going to stay, and it has a bright future. And as the community is growing, as we know, like the ETH India was the huge success, and builders were like there was a record for building most number of projects in a hackathon. So as the community is also getting aware, people are like joining Web3. So it's a kind of a bright future which we can see for Web3.
Vikash, that's a great answer. And I want to ask you then, Abhinav, if Vikash is right, that the future of Web3 is bright and there's a lot of possibilities here, how important do you think something like the graph is for that vision of the future of Web3?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Vikas. what he said about Web3 and its future. And if we talk about Graph, so as I said before, like Graph is the search engine for Web3 data. And right now it's one of the trusted source for Web3 data we have. So with the Graph, like there's lots of utility to come in the future, and it's going to stay, and it will be very helpful for the community to be the part of Graph. And like Graph is also like helping the community by providing making data accessible through its like GraphQL endpoint or like subgraph, and they're launching like something like Substream for the real time data and or something similar kind of thing. So yeah, the Graph is like making its effort, and it's going to be very useful for the complete committee and for DappLooker.
Well, now we've reached a part in the podcast where I'm going to ask you the GRTiQ 10. We talked before that Vikash for the group would be taking the 10 questions. And I ask these questions every week to help listeners learn something new, try something different, or to achieve more. So Vikash, are you ready for the GRTiQ 10?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
The GRTiQ 10. This is the way.
10 questions for astronauts floating in space.
What book or articles had the most impact on your life?
So yeah, one book which I remember was Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I exactly don't remember the author, but yeah, that was a very good book, and I will recommend everyone to read. Actually, it's tell about like how positive thinking can help you grow.
Is there a movie or a TV show that you think everybody should watch?
I don't have any particular recommendation for TV or movie show.
And how about this one? If you could only listen to one music album for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Well, I don't have anything in particular, but there is one Bollywood movie song from movie actually. Yes, boss. It's like in Hindi, Chand Tare Tod Laun. It's about dreaming big in whatever situation you are. Just dream big, work on your goals, and achieve those things. So that's a good song, which I will recommend. If everyone can understand, that's a very nice song.
And what's the best advice someone's ever given to you?
Best advice is kind of two advice I would say is like be honest with your work and respect everyone's time.
What's one thing you've learned in your life that you don't think other people have learned yet or don't know quite yet?
I'm not sure if people don't know about that, but yeah, means what I have learned over the time is like having a schedule. Whether you wake up at 4 or 12, that doesn't matter. Just have a schedule and be punctual on whatever you are doing.
What's the best life hack you've discovered for yourself?
Life hack. So well that I'm not sure if that exactly fits this question, but yeah, means I love to take breaks in between if I get stuck on some problem. So that helps me actually get the broader view to solve the problem. So whenever in life or in any problem debugging, if I get stuck somewhere, I take a break for some time.
Based on your own life experiences and observations, what's the one habit or characteristic that you think best explains how people find success in life?
I would say it in one word: consistency. In whatever you are doing, just be consistent.
And then Vikash, the final 3 questions are complete the sentence type questions. The first one is, the thing that most excites me about Web3 is?
In Web3, everyone's have the win-win situation, whether it's developer or user. Everyone get to what they want.
And how about this one? If you're on Twitter, then you should be following.
Of course, I will say GRTiQ because I personally listen to your podcast and those are like very informative. Many great minds are coming on your podcast. And other than that, of course, the Graph and DappLooker.
Thank you very much, Vikash. I appreciate that. And the last question is, complete this sentence. I'm happiest when?
Well, there are many situations when I'm happiest, but I would say when I solve some problem on which I'm struggling to find the solution.
The GRTiQ 10.
And I show you how deep the
Podcast.
This has been a production of the GRTiQ podcast. For more information, including detailed show notes, visit grtiq.com/podcast. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
Please consider contributing to this project and helping build the community by subscribing and leaving a review. GRTiQ Podcast.